Welcome back to another shiur in our little series on Jewish monetary law. In the past few shiurim, we've been talking about kinyanim and acquisitions. And I want to add on another story, to tell you another story, a case that actually happened, to emphasize, until now we've spoken about a thought, we've spoken about a verbal obligation, we've spoken about the custom. I want to speak to you now about where there's actually been a change of ownership. In real estate, in buying and selling of real estate, once you pay for the real estate, even if it's just a partial payment, it could be that there's now been a change of ownership. But generally, when buying and selling real estate, any buyer wants to know that he has a contract in his hands. He wants to have something written down in his name to prove that he's the owner of this property. The fact that he may have paid a few million to buy the property is not good enough for him. He is only satisfied with the deal once it's going to be written down in his name. That's something that we today are very, very particular about when we're dealing in real estate. I'm not talking about the contracts that we write up with a lawyer. The contracts we write up with a lawyer, if you read what's written in them, they're a promise to buy. They're not the actual acquisition. They're not a proof that the property is yours. I'm talking about the legal signing up of the property in your name, which usually happens at the end of the deal, after all the money has already been paid. And it can be even after the new buyer has actually moved into the property, when the property is actually signed down in the name of the new buyer. Only from that point in time is the buyer actually satisfied that the acquisition is over. And so therefore the halacha has to take account of this. And even though normally the normal principle would be that when you paid money over, the deal is complete, nevertheless, in the sale of real estate, we say that the deal is not complete until the property is registered officially and legally in the name of the new buyer. This would make a tremendous difference. Let's say that there was an earthquake and the house was destroyed between the first payment and the registering of the property in the name of the new buyer. Whose loss is it? Who's lost, the buyer or the seller? If there's a burst pipes, which can cost thousands to fix, on whose responsibility is it to fix it? In the time, which can be a matter of a few months between the first payment and the actual transfer of ownership at the end. Even though the halacha is that in a place where everyone is particular to have the property registered in the name of the buyer, only then is there a transfer of ownership. Nevertheless, if the seller were to allow the buyer to move in, to actually move in and start changing the locks and doing improvements to the property, from that point in time, we say that the deal is complete. Once he's allowed the buyer to do what's called a kinyan chazokah, to start doing improvements and changing the locks to the property, we can see from the actions of the seller that he has actually agreed now for there to be a transfer of ownership. Any outstanding money is now a debt, has to be paid, definitely has to be paid. And if it's not paid, it can cancel the whole deal. But it's a debt. The property actually now belongs to the buyer from the moment that he's been allowed to move in. This is a reason why people should be careful when selling real estate, that if you haven't been paid all the money yet, don't let the guy move in. Because by letting him move in, you've finished the transaction in some ways. And you have to think carefully if that's what you actually want to happen. Let me tell you this a story. There was a guy that lived on the top floor of an apartment building here in Jerusalem, and he wanted to build on an extra floor to his apartment. At the time, the law was that only the person living on the top floor was allowed to add on an extra apartment, an extra building. No one else would be allowed to, and of course he had to get the agreement of everyone. Now, the shell of any building actually belongs legally to all the people that live in the building, right? It doesn't belong just to the person that lives on the roof. So he is actually, by building on the roof, going to be taking the property of the guys that live downstairs. The guys that live downstairs were asked, how much you want. Do you need to be paid? There was a claim made here. This claim often comes up. There's a halacha of what's called midat Sodom. Everyone's heard of the people of Sodom and Amorah that were destroyed by Hashem because of their immoral behavior. One of the things that they used to do there in Sodom was that they wouldn't help anyone else out. If someone else needed help, they wouldn't give them any help. They had their own hashkofa. They had their own way of looking on the world. They said, if Hashem made you poor, so He meant you to be poor, I'm going to get involved in changing the creation, the way Hashem created the world, and help you out and give you money. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get involved. It's not my business. If Hashem wanted you to be rich, He would have given you money. Why should I? He made me rich because He wants me to have money. So I'm not going to give my money to you. That's changing the way that Hashem created the world. If you're ill and I'm healthy, I'm not going to help you. Hashem wants you to be ill. That's the way He wants things to be. That was the hashkofa. That was the way that the people in Sodom looked on the world. And so therefore, in a case where someone can benefit and you're not going to lose out anything by allowing them to benefit, the halacha is that that's midat Sodom if you don't allow them to benefit. If you don't allow them to benefit in such a way. That means any case where my friend can benefit and I'm not going to lose out on anything by allowing him to benefit, and I can somehow stop him from benefiting, I am obligated to do whatever I can to make sure that he's going to benefit. Let me translate this straight away into a real situation. Like you live in an apartment block and you have a parking space in your name. Private parking space, it's your property. But you lost your license. They took away your license. They caught you talking on your cell phone while you were driving. They've taken away your license for a few months. And in the meantime, you've sold your car. So you're not using your parking space. Your neighbor, his son, has just taken out a driving license and he's just got a new car. And he says, listen, do you mind if I park my car in your parking space until you get your new car, until you get your license back? If you are intending to rent out your parking space, then Gesundheit, you can rent it out. That's your prerogative. No one can tell you not to, and earn as much money as you can from that. That's fine. But if you're not planning on renting it out, you're planning on just leaving it empty, and this guy can benefit from parking his car there, so is it considered as midat Sodom on your behalf not to allow him to park there for free? That's the question of midat Sodom, right? There's not a clear answer right now. I'm not giving a clear answer as to whether there is midat Sodom in such a situation or there isn't, right? That's a whole separate shir that maybe we'll do one day. But the question can arise, and the question arose in this case of this guy that's building on the roof. He said to his neighbors, why, I'm supposed to pay you for building on the roof. You have no use for the roof. There's nothing you can do with the roof. So why should I have to pay you for it? It's midat Sodom. It's like behaving like the people of Sodom for you to ask money from me for building on the roof, because there's nothing you can do with the roof anyway. So why should I have to pay you? The answer is that according to all opinions, when we talk about midat Sodom, we'll see that there are different opinions about when it applies and when it doesn't apply. But according to all opinions, where I'm going to come and take away your property forever and make it mine by building on this roof that belongs to you, even though you have absolutely no use for it right now, that has absolutely nothing to do with midat Sodom. You can't take away someone else's property, even if they're not using it. That's not connected to midat Sodom. So therefore, it's clear that someone who's building on the roof has to pay. He has to pay for the part of the roof that he's going to take to the other neighbors. But not necessarily. Sometimes the other neighbors won't take money from him. They say, it's all right, we don't need money, you don't need to pay us. In this particular block, there was a guy there who, at first, when he realized that he can get some money for it, thought he's going to now make $1 million out of this, going to be able to marry off his children by selling his share of the roof, until he realized that it's not really worth very much. Even though he is going to get paid, he's not going to get paid very much, because how much is it worth How much is it worth to him? We're not talking about how much it's worth to the other guy. To the other guy, it's worth a lot of money. But he doesn't have to, that's not the value of something. Because you can extort someone and get out of a high price from them, that doesn't change the value of goods. Okay, so this guy went to take advice. How much can I get for the roof? And he was told you can't get much for it because you don't have any use for it. He went off and bought a whole load of chickens and set them loose on the roof and said, now you see the roof is my farm. And therefore it's worth a lot of money now. When they sent people up to check, it turned out that these chickens were more righteous than he was, and they all committed suicide and jumped off the roof. So none of them were there, so he didn't have a claim that he could claim that he's using the roof as a farm. Anyway, this particular guy afterwards decided that he's not going to take money. It's a small amount of money. Anyway, it's beneath his kavod to charge for it, and so he's not going to charge. The guy that was building on the roof said, fine, called in the workers. There was only a verbal agreement between the two of them, right? And then he called in the workers and they started building. As soon as he saw the workers coming in and he saw that things are really serious and really happening, he suddenly changed his mind. And he phoned up the guy that's building on the roof and he said to him, listen, I do want money for building on the roof. I do want to charge you the normal price that a valuer will tell me that the roof is worth. And the guy that's building there said, I'm sorry, it's too late. I've already started building. So what if you already started building? The roof is mine, it's my share. No, this guy agreed that he's going to give the roof over as a gift. And he's not going to demand a payment for it. At that time, when he made that promise, he can go back on it. He'll be considered as mechusrei amona for going back on it. He'll be considered as an unreliable person, like we said in the first shiur in this series, for going back on his word. But we can't stop him from doing it. But in this case, more than that has been done, because the guy that you told you're going to give this property to has actually already started building. As soon as he started building, finished. That's the end. That's the contractual act that makes the transfer of ownership. And so the roof already has been given over to him. After you've given a gift to someone, everyone knows that even if you fight with the guy the next day, you can't take the gift back, right? Maybe kids in first grade don't yet understand that, but anyone after first grade already realizes that when you give a gift to someone, even if you fight with them afterwards, you can't take it back. A gift has been given. And it's therefore the same in our case. The roof, the rights to this guy's rights to the roof, he agreed to give them over. The guy, the receiver of the gift, has already made the contractual act by starting to build. And the deal is now over and finished, and it's too late for this guy to go back on the deal and say now that he wants money. And that's exactly the same in any deal of real estate. That once chazokah has been given over, once possession has been given over to one of the parties, then that closes the deal, even if all the money hasn't yet been paid, and the money that's outstanding will be a debt. Thank you.